All right, so today we're going to look at simplifying expressions and what that means. First, we need to cover some vocabulary words. Our first vocabulary word that we're going to use is like terms. When we talk about like terms, thinking about our decimals activity that we did, we're going to start with terms that have the same variable. So for example, in our expression that we have above here, our like terms would be 14x, negative 2x, and negative 5x. Because remember, our term is always going to take the sign that's in front of it.
That's why.
All right, and then constant terms are just our terms with no variable. Because if something's constant, it means it doesn't change. In this case, our constant terms are anything that don't have that variable. So we have 9, 8, and 1. Coefficients is another vocabulary word that you should know, and these are the numbers that are in front of the variable. Looking back at our terms up on top, okay, our coefficients are those numbers in front of the variables. So in this case, our coefficient would be 14 for 14x, negative 2 for the negative 2x, and negative 5 for that negative 5x. All right. The main part of what we're going to introduce today, is the distributive property. So if you think about the distributive property, what it means is we're basically taking what's outside the parentheses that's being multiplied and distributing it to everything inside the parentheses. Up until this point, when you've worked with things like order of operations, we always simplify what's inside the parentheses first. This comes up when we're simplifying expressions because sometimes we only have variables available, and so we can't simplify what's inside the parentheses because we don't know the value of the variable. But by using the distributive property, we can simplify our expression and make it easier to work with. Another way we can think about it is this means we have, for example, A groups of B plus C. So what we do is, since it's A groups of B, it becomes A times B, or AB, but then it also becomes A groups of C, and then for the most part, we're going to keep that sign that's in the middle. So this A times the quantity of B plus C is the same as A times B plus A times C. When we look at the next one, the only thing that changes here is we have that subtraction sign in the middle. So this becomes A times B minus A times C. All right, so let's look at an example that has some actual numbers in it so we can see this in practice. Right? So what this means is I have 4 groups of x plus 9. So this would be the same as taking x plus 9 plus x plus 9, plus x plus 9 plus x plus 9. That's what that means. We don't want to have to write all that out though, so the distributive property makes it faster. So if we look at this, what we really have here is we have 4 x's because we did 4 times x plus 4 9's, which is 4 times 9, which makes it 36. So when we use the distributive property, it becomes 4x plus 36. If we look at this next example, you might notice that we have this, not only do we have the subtraction sign in the middle, but we also have this negative in front of our 3. So just like we distribute the 3, we're also going to distribute the negative. So when we do this one, we're looking at negative 3 times a positive A, which gives us a negative 3a. And just like when we're simplifying, we're going to think of this in terms of a negative 6 at this point. So even though it's minus 6, it's like a negative 6. So I'm going to take negative 3 times negative 6. And we know 3 times 6 is 18, but since it's a negative times a negative, this will actually end up being a positive 18. All right, so combining like terms just means we're going to combine any like terms, so terms with the same variable, and also any constant terms until we can't anymore. We're going to simplify it. Okay. So one thing that might be helpful is using either different colors or different shapes to kind of designate some of our like terms. So for example here, I see, and I'm going to use red, that I have 4x and a positive 7x. And we're always going to go in alphabetical order. In this case, we only have x. So if I have 4x's plus 7x's, I now have a total of 11x's. And then we see this 3 all by itself. There are no other constant terms, so this simply becomes plus 3. And that would be simplified because at this point we can't combine the 11x plus 3 because we would have to do 11 times x first before we can add it to 3. Why don't you pause the video and try this next one on your own and just see how you do. All right, hopefully you remembered that with parentheses we're going to do those first. We're actually going to distribute first. So I'm going to take 3 times x, which is 3x, and then 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. And now I'm going to just bring down the rest of my expression. I'm going to look for my like terms. In this case, I have a positive 3x and a positive 12x. So 3x plus 12x is a total of 15x's. And now I have negative 12 and a negative 8. So altogether, I have 20 negatives. So this is going to be minus 20. All right, so hopefully this helped with just a couple quick examples. Please use the rest of class time to kind of work through our practice problems to just continue to work on combining like terms.